Dr. Sarah Chen pulled her thick coat tighter against the bitter Arctic wind. She had been working in this frozen wasteland for 3 months now, studying how the ice was melting due to climate change. Her team of 6 scientists lived in a small research station, surrounded by nothing but white ice and gray sky for hundreds of miles. "Sarah, you need to see this," called Marcus, her lead technician. He was staring at the screen of their ground-penetrating radar with wide eyes. "The readings are off the charts." Sarah hurried over, her boots crunching on the packed snow. The radar screen showed something impossible. Deep beneath the ice, about 200 feet down, there was a massive metallic object. It was huge, nearly 3,000 feet long and shaped like nothing she had ever seen. "That can't be right," Sarah muttered, adjusting the controls. "Run it again." Marcus typed commands into the computer. The radar waves went deep into the ice, bouncing back from whatever was buried below. The image appeared again, exactly the same. A giant metal shape, perfectly preserved in ice that was thousands of years old. "Could it be a natural formation?" asked Dr. Kim Park, their geologist. She had rushed over when she heard the excitement in their voices. Sarah shook her head. "Look at those edges. They're too straight, too perfect. This is manufactured." The team gathered around the screen, all talking at once. Nothing like this had ever been found before. The object was buried in ice layers that their tests showed were at least 50,000 years old. That meant whatever this thing was, it had been here since before recorded human history. "We need to contact the university immediately," Sarah said, but Marcus was already shaking his head. "I tried the satellite phone. The storm knocked out our communications 3 hours ago. We're cut off until it passes." Sarah looked out the window at the swirling snow. Arctic storms could last for days. But she couldn't wait that long. This discovery was too important. "We start digging," she announced. "Carefully. We need to see what this thing really is." The next morning, the storm had weakened enough for them to work outside. The team set up their equipment over the spot where the radar had detected the object. They used heated water jets to melt through the ice, working in shifts around the clock. After 2 days of non-stop digging, they broke through to something solid. Sarah rappelled down into the hole they had created, her headlamp cutting through the darkness. The light hit something that made her gasp. It was metal, but not like any metal she knew. The surface was perfectly smooth and seemed to have a faint blue glow. Strange symbols covered the hull, patterns that looked like writing but from no language on Earth. "My God," she whispered into her radio. "This is definitely artificial. And definitely not human." The news hit the team like lightning. They worked faster now, expanding the hole to expose more of the object. What they found was clearly the hull of some kind of vehicle, a ship or aircraft unlike anything ever built on Earth. When their communications finally came back online 3 days later, Sarah made the most important phone call of her life. She reached Dr. James Morrison, the head of the Arctic Research Institute. "Jim, I need you to sit down," she said. "We've found something. Something impossible." "What are you talking about, Sarah?" "A ship, buried in 50,000-year-old ice. And it's not from Earth." The silence on the other end lasted so long that Sarah thought the connection had been lost. "Jim, are you there?" "I'm here." His voice was shaky. "Sarah, are you absolutely certain about what you're saying?" "I'm looking at it right now. The metal doesn't match anything in our databases. The writing system is completely alien. This is real, Jim. We've found proof that we're not alone in the universe." Within 12 hours, Sarah's quiet research station became the center of the world's attention. Military helicopters arrived first, followed by teams of scientists from every major country. The small camp grew into a massive operation with hundreds of people, all focused on the buried ship. General Patricia Hayes took control of the military side of the operation. She was a tough woman in her 50s who had seen combat in 3 different wars, but even she seemed shaken by what they had found. "Dr. Chen," she said during their first meeting, "I need you to understand how serious this is. If word of this gets out before we understand what we're dealing with, it could cause worldwide panic." Sarah nodded. She understood the implications. The discovery of alien technology would change everything: religion, politics, science, the way humans saw themselves in the universe. The excavation continued under heavy security. They used industrial heaters to melt away more ice, revealing more of the ship's incredible design. The hull was covered in those strange symbols, and some team members swore the writing seemed to shift and change when they weren't looking directly at it. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a linguist brought in from Oxford, spent hours studying the alien writing. "These symbols are incredibly complex," she reported to the team. "They seem to follow mathematical patterns, but the meaning is completely beyond anything we've seen before." As more of the ship was exposed, they found what looked like an airlock. It was a circular door about 7 feet wide, made of the same strange metal as the rest of the hull. There were no visible controls or handles. "How do we open it?" General Hayes asked. Dr. Park ran her hands over the smooth surface. "There might be some kind of sensor system. Maybe it responds to touch or heat." They tried everything, pressing on different parts of the door, shining lights on it, even playing different sounds near it. Nothing worked. The ship remained sealed, keeping its secrets locked inside. On the 7th day of excavation, something changed. Dr. Rodriguez, a young physicist from Mexico, was taking measurements near the airlock when he accidentally leaned against it. The door suddenly hummed to life. Blue lights ran along the edges of the circular entrance, and the door began to rotate. It moved slowly, making a soft humming sound that seemed almost musical. After a few seconds, it stopped, leaving an opening into the ship's interior. Everyone stepped back in amazement. The ship had responded to human touch. "It's inviting us in," Sarah whispered. General Hayes immediately ordered security teams to surround the opening. "Nobody goes inside until we know it's safe," she commanded. But Sarah found herself drawn to the entrance. Cool air flowed out of the ship, carrying a strange scent, something like ozone mixed with flowers. The interior was dark, but she could see faint lights beginning to glow along what looked like walls. "The ship is waking up," she said. "After 50,000 years, it's responding to us. It wants us to come inside." As night fell over the Arctic camp, the alien ship sat partially exposed in the ice, its open doorway glowing with soft blue light. The team gathered around the entrance, knowing they stood at the edge of the greatest discovery in human history. Tomorrow, they would take humanity's first steps into an alien world. None of them could sleep that night, wondering what incredible secrets waited for them inside the ancient vessel. Scientists discovered a spaceship buried in Arctic ice. What they found inside: a 5-part HFY Sci-Fi Story. Outline Part 1, The Discovery Setting. Remote Arctic Research Station, Northern Alaska. Dr. Sarah Chen's climate research team detects massive metallic anomalies beneath 50,000-year-old ice, using ground-penetrating radar. The object is enormous, nearly a kilometer long and perfectly preserved. Initial excavation reveals smooth alien metal that doesn't match any known earthly materials. The ship's hull bears intricate symbols that seem to shift and change when observed directly. Military and scientific teams converge on the site within days. The discovery sends shockwaves through world governments. This is undeniable proof of alien visitation. Key revelation: carbon dating suggests the ship crashed during the last ice age, when early humans were still developing agriculture. Part 2. First Contact Protocol Setting. Inside the alien vessel, the ship's airlock responds to human touch, surprising everyone. Inside, the architecture is both alien and strangely familiar, built for beings roughly human-sized but with different proportions. Emergency lighting flickers to life as the team explores corridors filled with indecipherable technology. In the ship's central chamber, they discover dozens of crystalline pods containing the preserved remains of the crew. Tall, elegant beings with elongated limbs and large eyes. But one pod is different. It's still active, its occupant alive but in deep stasis. Dr. Chen's team faces a momentous decision: attempt to revive the last survivor of an ancient alien crash, knowing it could be humanity's first real conversation with another intelligent species. Key revelation: the alien technology seems to respond positively to human bioelectric fields, suggesting an unexpected compatibility. Part 3. The Awakening Setting. Secure medical facility within the research compound against military objections. The scientific team carefully revives the alien, who calls herself Kethvar of the Veltar Collective. She's weak but mentally sharp, having been in stasis for millennia. Through a combination of mathematics, crude drawings, and remarkable intuition, communication begins. Kethvar reveals that her people were explorers and scientists, part of a vast galactic community that mapped and studied developing worlds. Earth was marked as a protected nursery, world on a planet where primitive but promising species were allowed to evolve without interference. Her ship crashed while conducting orbital surveys of early human settlements. The crew died in the impact, but the ship's advanced AI kept her alive, waiting for the nursery species to develop enough to find and revive her. Key revelation: humanity has been under protection for 50,000 years. But that protection is about to expire. Part 4. The warning setting. Global emergency session via quantum communication array. Using the ship's still-functioning communications array, Kethvar contacts what remains of the Veltar Collective. The news she receives is devastating. The galaxy has changed. The benevolent collective fell to an aggressive hive mind species called the Devourers centuries ago. The Devourers consume entire worlds, stripping them of resources and enslaving populations. They've been systematically destroying protected worlds as they expand. Earth's protection expired decades ago, but its remote location bought precious time. Kethvar estimates they have perhaps 5 years before the Devourers arrive. Her ship's weapons and shields are damaged beyond repair, but its database contains something invaluable: complete technological specifications for defensive systems, weapons, and most importantly, the locations of hidden Veltar weapons caches throughout the galaxy. Key revelation: humanity must unite and advance rapidly, or face extinction, but they won't face it alone. Part 5. Humanity Rising. Setting: 5 years later, Earth's transformed landscape. The revelation unified humanity like nothing before. Nation-states dissolved into a single Earth defense coalition, using Veltar technology adapted to human engineering principles. Massive orbital defense platforms surround the planet. Lunar bases mine resources while Mars hosts weapon testing facilities. When the Devourer fleet arrives, 1,000 bioships expecting an easy conquest, they find something unprecedented. Humanity didn't just copy Veltar technology, they improved it. Human unpredictability and adaptability combined with alien knowledge created weapons systems the Devourers have never encountered. The battle is fierce but brief. Human-modified quantum torpedoes tear through bioarmor that had conquered a dozen species. Earth's defense grid, powered by human-developed fusion cores, proves impenetrable. The Devourer fleet is annihilated. In the aftermath, Kethvar watches human ships launch toward the hidden weapons caches she revealed. Humanity isn't content to simply defend. They're going on the offensive to liberate enslaved worlds and restore the galaxy. Final revelation: she realizes the Veltar Collective's greatest success wasn't their technology or their peaceful expansion. It was recognizing that humanity would one day become the galaxy's guardians. The nursery species has become the galaxy's salvation story themes: human ingenuity and adaptability. As our greatest strengths, unity in the face of existential threats, the responsibility that comes with technological advancement, mentorship across species and time, evolution from protected to protector HFY elements, humans improving on superior alien technology, unity and cooperation triumphing over division Earth, becoming the center of galactic liberation, human unpredictability as a tactical advantage. The vindication of human potential after millennia of development. 2 weeks later, the Arctic Research Station had become a small city. Scientists, military personnel, and government officials from 12 different countries had arrived to witness what everyone knew would be the most important moment in human history. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the newly built medical facility, watching the final preparations for the awakening procedure. The alien in the central stasis pod had been carefully moved to their makeshift hospital, still sealed in her crystal chamber. Teams of doctors and biologists had spent days studying the pod systems, trying to understand how it worked. The revival sequence seems to be automated, explained Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a Japanese biotechnology expert. When we touch this panel here, the pod begins a wake-up process. But once we start it, we can't stop it. General Hayes stood with the international committee that would make the final decision. Representatives from the United States, Russia, China, the European Union, and other major powers had debated for days about whether to proceed. "The risks are enormous," said Dr. Vladimir Petrov from the Russian Academy of Sciences. "We could be releasing something dangerous that has been safely contained for 50,000 years." But Dr. Chen had argued passionately for attempting the revival. "This could be our only chance to communicate with an intelligence from another world. The knowledge they possess could advance human civilization by thousands of years." The debate had raged for hours, but finally, the vote was unanimous. They would attempt to wake the alien. Dr. Williams, now the lead medical officer for the operation, had prepared everything they could think of. Isolation chambers, air filtration systems, medical equipment adapted for non-human biology, and even weapons just in case. "Everyone ready?" General Hayes asked over the intercom. Sarah placed her hand on the activation panel. The pod immediately began to hum with energy. Lights ran along its surface in complex patterns, and the liquid inside started to drain away slowly. The alien's body, which had been floating peacefully, began to settle onto a soft surface that appeared inside the pod. Her breathing, which had been almost undetectable, became deeper and more regular. "Life signs are increasing," Dr. Williams reported. "Heart rate, brain activity, everything is speeding up. She's waking up." It took almost an hour. The pod opened with a soft hiss and the alien's large eyes fluttered open. She was beautiful in a strange way, with features that were almost human but clearly different. Her skin had a pale blue tint and her eyes were much larger than human eyes, a deep silver color. She sat up slowly, looking around the medical facility with obvious confusion. When she saw the humans watching her, she didn't seem afraid. Instead, she appeared curious, studying them with the same intensity they were studying her. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the linguist, stepped forward carefully. She had prepared for this moment by studying the alien writing throughout the ship. She pointed to herself and said clearly, "Human, Sarah Human." The alien tilted her head, considering. Then she pointed to herself and made a sound that was musical and complex. She repeated it several times and Dr. Vasquez tried to copy the pronunciation. "Kethvar," the alien said, speaking slowly and clearly. Then she pointed to the humans and attempted their word, "Human." Communication began with simple pointing and naming. Kethvar, as she called herself, was incredibly intelligent. Within hours, she had learned dozens of English words and was starting to understand basic grammar. She seemed as eager to communicate as the humans were. Using a combination of drawings, mathematics, and gestures, they began to share information. Kethvar drew pictures of star systems and showed them that she came from a planet orbiting a different sun. She drew her ship traveling through space and indicated that there were many others like her. She's not alone, Sarah realized. Her people are space travelers. They have many ships. Over the following days, Kethavar's English improved rapidly. She explained that her people were called the Veltar, and they were explorers and scientists. They traveled between stars, studying different worlds and the life forms on them. Earth, she said, her accent making the word sound musical, is special world. Young species here very promising. Promising how? Dr. Chen asked. Kethvar struggled with the translation, finally drawing pictures to explain. She showed humans developing from simple tribes to complex civilizations. She drew other worlds where similar species had failed to advance, destroying themselves with wars or environmental disasters. Veltar watch many worlds, she explained. Most young species die, but humans different. Humans survive. Humans grow. Humans have potential. The revelation was stunning. Humanity had been watched and studied by an advanced alien civilization for thousands of years. But Kethvar insisted they had never interfered, only observed. Protected world, she said, using English words she had learned from the scientists. Young species must grow alone or growth not real. Dr. Rodriguez asked the question everyone was thinking. Why did your ship crash? What happened to your crew? Kethvar's expression became sad. She explained that her ship had been conducting orbital surveys when a massive solar storm had damaged their systems. They had crashed into the Arctic ice and most of the crew had died in the impact. Only a few had survived in the stasis pods. Ship computer, keep me alive, she said. Wait for humans to find. Wait for humans to become ready. Ready for what? General Hayes asked. Kethvar's answer chilled everyone in the room. Ready for protection to end. She went on to explain that Earth had been designated as a protected nursery world by the Veltar Collective. Young species were given time to develop without interference from the many dangerous civilizations that existed in the galaxy. But protection periods had limits. Earth's protection had been scheduled to end soon, and Kethvar had been sent to evaluate whether humans were ready to join the galactic community or if they needed more time. The crash had prevented her from making that report. What happens when protection ends? Sarah asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Kethvar looked at each of the humans in turn, her large silver eyes filled with something that looked like sympathy. Galaxy is a dangerous place, she said quietly. Many species want resources, want slaves, want new worlds to conquer. Protection keeps them away. But when protection ends, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood. Without the Veltar protection, Earth would be exposed to whatever hostile forces existed among the stars. How long do we have? Dr. Chen whispered. Kethvar made calculations using the mathematical symbols the humans had learned to recognize. When she finished, her answer made everyone's blood run cold. Protection ended 20 Earth years ago, she said. Galaxy is big. Takes time for dangerous ones to find new worlds. But they come. They always come. The room fell silent except for the humming of medical equipment. Humanity had been living on borrowed time for 2 decades, unaware that their cosmic protection had already expired. How long before they find us? General Hayes asked. Kethvar looked up at the ceiling as if she could see through it to the stars beyond. Not long now, she said softly. Maybe 5 Earth years. Maybe less. The news that Earth's protection had already expired sent shockwaves through every government on the planet. Within days of Kethvar's revelation, emergency sessions were called in the United Nations, and world leaders held secret meetings to discuss what this meant for humanity. Dr. Sarah Chen spent most of her time with Kethvar now, helping her recover from 50,000 years in stasis while learning everything she could about the galaxy beyond Earth. The alien was surprisingly strong, considering her long sleep, and her knowledge was vast. Tell me about these dangerous species, Sarah asked as they sat in the observation room that had become Kethvar's temporary home. What exactly are we facing? Kethvar's expression grew dark. Worst ones called Devourers. They not like Veltar. They not explore or learn. They only consume. She had learned to use the ship's still-functioning computer systems to show images on wall displays. The pictures she showed made Sarah's stomach turn. Worlds stripped bare of all life. Cities reduced to empty shells. Entire civilizations that had simply vanished, leaving behind only dead planets. Devourers are hive mind, Kethvar explained. All think as one. All serve the collective. They find world with life, they take everything. Resources, technology, living beings to serve them. How many worlds have they destroyed? Dr. Rodriguez asked. He had joined their daily sessions along with Dr. Park and several other key scientists. Thousands, Kethvar replied simply. Maybe more. They've been growing for many centuries. When I went into stasis, Veltar Collective was strong. We had many ships, many protected worlds. But now, she operated the ship's computer trying to contact her people. What came back was mostly static, but occasionally they caught fragments of signals from distant stars. The news was not good. Collective is broken, Kethvar said, her voice heavy with sadness. Most Veltar worlds have fallen. Some survivors hide in far systems, but not many. Devourers won the war. The weight of this revelation hit everyone hard. The advanced civilization that had protected Earth for millennia had been destroyed. Humanity was truly alone now, facing an enemy that had conquered most of the galaxy. What about weapons? General Hayes asked during one of her visits. Your people must have had defenses, Kethvar nodded. Veltar had powerful weapons, energy shields, fast ships. But Devourers learn quickly. They adapt. They took our technology and made it better. But then her expression changed, becoming more hopeful. However, Veltar prepared for this possibility. Hidden caches placed throughout galaxy, weapons, ships, knowledge bases, if found, could help remaining species fight back. She brought up star maps on the display, showing locations scattered across local space. Nearest cache here, she said, pointing to a system about 50 light-years from Earth. Contains enough weapons to arm entire fleet. Dr. Chen felt a spark of hope. Could humans reach these caches? Could we use these weapons? With ship technology, yes. But humans not have space travel yet. Still bound to one world. That's when Kethvar shared the most important revelation of all. Her ship, despite being damaged in the crash, contained complete technical databases. Engineering specifications for faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, defensive shields, and manufacturing systems that could build everything humanity would need. Ship's main computer still functional, she explained. All Veltar knowledge stored there. Human smart species. Humans can learn. The next several months became the most intense period of scientific advancement in human history. Kethvar worked with teams of engineers and physicists, translating alien technologies into systems that humans could build and understand. The first breakthrough came in energy production. Veltar fusion reactors were far more efficient than anything humans had developed. Within 6 months, prototype reactors were providing clean, unlimited power to research facilities around the world. Next came materials science. The strange metal of Kethvar's ship could be manufactured using techniques that combined alien knowledge with human engineering. This metal was stronger than any substance known to Earth science, yet surprisingly light. But the most important advancement was in space travel. The Veltar had mastered what they called quantum tunneling, a way to fold space-time and travel vast distances almost instantly. Human minds work differently than Veltar, Kethvar observed as she watched human engineers adapt her people's designs. You see problems from new angles. You find solutions we never considered. Dr. Chen was amazed at how quickly humans were learning. Is this normal? Do most species adapt this fast? No, Kethvar replied with what might have been a smile. Most species try to copy exactly. Humans change, improve, make better. Very unusual. The changes weren't limited to technology. The threat from the Devourers had done something unprecedented. It had united humanity. Old conflicts between nations seemed petty when faced with the possibility of extinction. Resources that had been wasted on wars were now focused on preparing Earth's defenses. The United Nations transformed into the Earth Defense Coalition, with representatives from every nation working together toward a single goal: survival. Kethvar often commented on how remarkable this was. Most species fight each other even when facing extinction, she said. Humans different. Humans come together when threatened. Construction began on massive orbital platforms around Earth. Using the new fusion reactors and alien metallurgy, these stations would serve as the planet's first line of defense. Hidden facilities on the Moon and Mars began manufacturing weapons and ships using Veltar designs improved by human innovation. But time was running short. Deep space monitoring stations, built using Veltar sensor technology, began picking up disturbing signals from nearby star systems. The Devourers were getting closer. 3 years after Kethvar's awakening, the sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. A massive fleet had entered a system just 20 light-years away. The signals matched Devourer bioships perfectly. They found us, Kethvar said as she studied the data. They coming to Earth. General Hayes, now Supreme Commander of Earth Defense, asked the question everyone was afraid to hear answered: how long do we have? Kethvar made calculations using both Veltar and human mathematics. Devourer ships are fast, but they stop to consume each world they find. Based on their pattern of movement, 2 years, maybe less. 2 years to prepare for a war against an enemy that had conquered most of the galaxy. 2 years to transform a planet-bound species into a spacefaring civilization capable of defending itself. But as Sarah looked around the command center, filled with humans and alien technology working in harmony, she felt something she hadn't expected: confidence. They've never faced anything like us before, have they? She asked Kethvar. The alien considered this carefully. No, she admitted. Devourers have conquered many species, but never species like humans. Never species that adapt so quickly, that unite so completely, that improve on everything they learn. Sarah smiled grimly. Then maybe it's time they learned what happens when you threaten humanity. 5 years had passed since Dr. Sarah Chen first discovered the alien ship in the Arctic ice. As she stood on the observation deck of Orbital Defense Platform Alpha, looking down at the transformed Earth below, she could barely believe how much had changed. The planet was no longer the divided world it had been. Massive space elevators stretched from the surface to orbit, carrying supplies and personnel to the fleet of defense stations that now surrounded Earth like a protective shell. The Moon had been converted into a massive shipyard, its surface covered with construction facilities that worked around the clock. Mars, once a distant dream, was now humanity's forward military base. Weapons testing ranges covered the red planet's surface, and underground facilities stored enough firepower to arm 100 fleets, all of it built in just 5 years, using technology that combined Veltar knowledge with human innovation. "They're coming," announced Captain Martinez from the command center. "Deep space sensors confirm it. Devourer fleet has entered the outer system." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat, but she was surprised to find she wasn't afraid. After 5 years of preparation, Earth was ready. The Devourer fleet was massive, over 1,000 ships, each one a biological nightmare that looked more like a living creature than a spacecraft. They moved in perfect formation, advancing toward the inner system with the confidence of predators who had never met real resistance. Kethvar stood beside Sarah, her silver eyes fixed on the tactical displays. She had spent the last 5 years not just helping humanity prepare, but learning from them in return. The combination of Veltar wisdom and human creativity had produced results neither species could have achieved alone. "Fleet composition analysis complete," reported Dr. Rodriguez from his position at the science station. He had become one of Earth's leading experts on Devourer technology. 1,047 bioships, ranging from small fighters to massive world killers. Estimated crew, over 10 million. General Hayes, now Admiral Hayes of the Earth Defense Fleet, studied the enemy formation with calm eyes. "Conventional tactics would be hopeless against a force that size," she said. "Good thing we don't fight conventionally anymore." The first phase of Earth's defense began when the Devourers were still 2 days away from the planet. Hidden facilities on asteroids throughout the outer system activated, launching clouds of what appeared to be space debris toward the approaching fleet. "Human deception protocols in effect," announced the tactical officer. "The enemy fleet is continuing on course. They don't recognize the threat." The debris was actually thousands of advanced mines, each one equipped with human-designed AI systems and powered by miniaturized fusion reactors. Unlike the Veltar, who had always fought with honor and fair warning, humans had learned the value of surprise and misdirection. When the mines detonated among the Devourer formation, the results exceeded even the most optimistic projections. Explosions rippled through the enemy fleet as quantum warheads, a human innovation that Kethvar had called impossible until she saw them work, tore through bio-ship hulls that had resisted Veltar weapons for centuries. "First strike successful," reported the weapons coordinator. "Enemy casualties, approximately 200 ships destroyed, 300 more damaged." But the Devourers adapted quickly, just as Kethvar had warned. The surviving ships changed formation and began launching their own weapons, living projectiles that sought out the remaining mines and destroyed them with precise bioplasma bursts. Phase 2, Admiral Hayes ordered. Earth's orbital defense platforms activated their main weapons. These weren't copies of Veltar technology, but entirely new systems designed by human engineers who had studied both alien science and Earth's own military history. The platforms fired beams of focused gravity, weapons that didn't just destroy enemy ships, but twisted space-time around them until the bioships were crushed by forces they couldn't resist or adapt to. More Devourer vessels fell, but the survivors pressed their attack. Bioplasma bursts began striking Earth's outer defenses, and several orbital platforms were destroyed in brilliant explosions. "They're learning our tactics too quickly," warned Dr. Park from her position at the Strategic Analysis Console. "Traditional defensive patterns won't hold them." That's when Admiral Hayes implemented the most radical part of Earth's defense plan. Instead of staying in defensive positions, the human fleet attacked. Hundreds of ships launched from hidden bases on the Moon and Mars. These weren't copies of Veltar vessels, but entirely new designs that reflected human thinking about space warfare. They were smaller, faster, and more maneuverable than anything the Devourers had encountered before. Human pilots, trained in combat techniques that combined traditional Earth military doctrine with alien technology, engaged the massive Devourer fleet in a style of warfare the galaxy had never seen. "Wolfpack tactics operational," reported Flight Commander Chen, Sarah's younger brother, who had become one of Earth's finest pilots. "We're hitting their flanks with coordinated strikes, then vanishing before they can respond." The human ships used quantum tunneling not for long-range travel, but for short tactical jumps that allowed them to appear and disappear around the battlefield like ghosts. Devourer bioships designed to fight conventional opponents couldn't cope with enemies that refused to hold still. Meanwhile, Earth's ground-based weapons joined the battle. Massive railguns powered by fusion reactors and enhanced with gravitational field generators fired projectiles that could punch through multiple bioships with a single shot. "Enemy formation is breaking up," announced the tactical coordinator. "They're trying to adapt, but our combat patterns are too unpredictable." Kethvar watched the battle with amazement. "This is not how space warfare works," she said to Sarah. "Both sides should maintain formations, exchange fire at long range, rely on superior firepower." Sarah smiled grimly. "That's how everyone else fights. Humans fight to win." The turning point came when Commander Chen's squadron managed to destroy one of the largest Devourer command ships. Instead of simply exploding, the bioship began transmitting data about human tactics to the rest of the fleet. "They're sharing combat information," Dr. Rodriguez warned. "In a few minutes they'll know all our tricks." But Admiral Hayes had anticipated this. "Execute Operation Thunderbolt," she ordered. Hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system activated simultaneously. These weren't conventional weapons, but quantum communicators that had been modified for a purpose no one had ever attempted before. They created a localized disruption in space-time that interfered with the Devourer's hive mind communication. For the first time in their history, individual Devourer ships found themselves cut off from the collective consciousness that guided them. Without central coordination, their formations collapsed into chaos. Human forces pressed their advantage, using the confusion to destroy enemy ships faster than the Devourers could adapt. Within hours, the massive invasion fleet was reduced to scattered survivors fleeing back toward deep space. "Enemy retreat confirmed," announced the communications officer. "Remaining Devourer forces are leaving the system." The command center erupted in cheers, but Sarah noticed that Kethvar looked troubled rather than relieved. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked. "Devourers never retreat," Kethvar said quietly. "In all recorded history, they never give up on conquest. But they run from humans. This means—" She paused, then looked at Sarah with something like awe. "This means Galaxy will learn humans cannot be conquered. Word will spread. Other surviving species will hear that Earth turned back the Devourers." Admiral Hayes joined their conversation. "Is that good or bad?" Kethvar considered carefully. "Good for Galaxy. Many worlds still fight, still hope. Now they know resistance is possible. But also—" She looked at the displays showing human ships pursuing the retreating Devourers. "Humans will not stop here. I know your species now. You will hunt them down." She was right. Even as the celebration continued, Admiral Hayes was already planning the next phase of operations. Human ships would follow the Devourers back to their bases, liberate the worlds they had conquered, and rescue any surviving species. "The weapons caches you told us about," Sarah said to Kethvar. "We'll need them all." Kethvar nodded. "Yes, humans ready now. Ready to restore Veltar Collective. Ready to free Galaxy." As Sarah looked out at the stars, she realized that the discovery of that crashed ship in the Arctic ice had done more than save humanity. It had given birth to the Galaxy's new guardians. The Devourers had made a critical mistake. They had attacked not just another species, but the one species in the galaxy that got stronger when threatened, smarter when challenged, and more united when faced with extinction. They had awakened humanity, and now the universe would never be the same.